Hello and welcome to the Make More Placements podcast. Today we're going to be talking about 5 business development rules every recruitment and search business owner needs to know to grow in 2026. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook Live, remember to like and comment. Let us know where you're listening from. Let us know you're enjoying the show. Any questions you've got as well, you can put in the comments. We will get back to you. As always, this episode is sponsored by placementbox.io. It's an all-in-one business development tool built specifically for recruitment and search business owners. So if you want more clients, head over to placementbox.io and see what they've got going on there. Today we're going to be talking about 5 business development rules every recruitment and search business owner needs to know to grow in 2026. Again, we've been speaking to a lot of recruiters over the last few weeks, all of the last year, really. And, one of the big hurdles, big challenges they have is everyone wants to get more clients, not just more, but better quality clients. And I think one of the mistakes that I see every single year is that recruiters still sort of work off old patterns, right? So it's a thing we talk about a lot, but Terry, you've got what 30, 40 years?
No, not quite 40, Drew. I'm not quite that old yet.
How many years is it? It's got to be. You always say to me, but I'm sort of like 15 now, so it's more than that.
Yeah. So it's all joking apart. It's nearly 30 years in the recruitment industry.
Yeah, 30 years recruitment experience. I've got about 15, right? And even today, Terry, I see people using business development philosophies, tactics, rules that were big in the olden days, in your time.
Yeah. I do as well, and it never ceases to amaze me.
I like how you let the olden days come in past. By the way,
I'm not going to indulge you. I'm going to leave it on.
but yeah. In all seriousness, I see people using the same tactics, strategies, and also philosophies back then. But business technology moves so quick, business development moves so quick. Clients or potential clients get more, I guess, aware of what's out there, get more in tune to what's out there. You have to adapt and you have to sort of shift. Also, there's probably more competition now, business development wise than ever before, right? Well, I think
100%.
Terry, again, back in the olden days, where it was, it was just cold calling, even maybe some door knocking. There was very limited options that you had. But now each one of your clients is being bombarded by, emails, social media, whatever it is. So I think we need to always be looking to up in the game, step in the game. Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, and all joking apart, it was just after the First World War when I first entered recruitment. Yeah, but all joking apart, the world's changed dramatically over the last 30 years. As you rightly said, I was given a Rolodex and telephone, and I was told to smile and dial to get business, and I did, and we all did. By the way, I wasn't unique. That's how we got business, and we used to, the CV or the resume, we had to fax it over to the hiring manager. Then we had to pop it in the post because the fax copy would fade. And as you rightly said, it's fair to say that things have changed since then. We had no internet. We now had no mobile phone. But sadly, as you rightly said, there are recruiters today, 30 that are doing exactly the same thing that I was doing 30 years ago.
Yeah,
and they're complaining that it's not working, and they're surprised that it's not working. But seriously, using a Rolodex and relying on cold calling to get business is probably not going to serve you well. And the other one is relying on your network. The amount of recruitment business owners I speak to say, for the last few years I've just relied on my network, but my network has shrunk. People have moved on. 1 or 2 clients I've had a change of buyer, change of supply, and all these things that happen. And what that means is they haven't been sharpening their business development tools, for want of a better word. So when they go back to business development, because they have to go back, they're using the methods that let's say I was using 30 years ago. So we can't do that anymore. So there are some rules that if you just follow these rules, you almost guarantee success. And rule number 1 is business development must run without daily willpower. Because and I know that every morning we wake up and you go, today is going to be the day. I'm going to pick up that phone. I'm going to call 5, 10, 20, 100 people. And you walk into office, you open up your computer, and before you know it, you're reading your emails. Then you've gone into LinkedIn and you've gone down that wormhole of not just LinkedIn, but any social media platform. Before you know it, it's 11 o'clock. You then think, well, it's time for me to have a coffee now. You then have your coffee and you come back to your desk, and then there's some CVs or resumes on your desk. You've got to go through those. Then you remember a few candidates that you've got to reach out to. Before you know it, it's 3:00. And that intention of, I'm going to make 50 calls today is gone. But here's what you say. Never mind. I'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And guess what? The same thing happens tomorrow. And relying on remembering or willpower to do it is the fastest way for your recruitment business to stall. And even as I'm saying this to you, some of you are nodding because you're already and acknowledging that's exactly what you're doing. I'm not beating you up about it. You're not alone in doing it, but you need to be aware of what's going on. And you also know at some level intellectually that if you keep doing that, you're going to keep getting the same results, which aren't particularly good. But that's the problem with relying on business development, on remembering to do it, or willpower. Does that make sense, Drew?
Yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense. And I think this is probably one of the biggest causes for me for feast and famine in recruitment and search business, because it's not, to me. I mean, I love business development. It's my favorite part about the business, about the industry. And for me, it's like it's a non-negotiable, right? And and when I say that, I don't mean it's non-negotiable as in my willpower. I mean that what you should be doing in your business is setting up systems. So on the days you don't feel like it, on the days where you're not in the office, on the days, whatever it is, you're not there, business development still happens, whether that's because you've got you've a team doing it or you've got automation doing it. It needs to happen regardless. I think anywhere in your business where, like Terry said, it's down on daily motivation, there's going to be a time where you don't feel motivated, right? I don't care how ambitious you are, how disciplined you are, there's going to be a time where you don't feel motivated, right? And I think if your business development is relying on that, then it's going to not get done. And if it doesn't get done, then you don't get as many clients as you want, or you don't get the quality of clients that you want. So I think, yeah, Terry, what you said, 100% agree. It needs to be a consistent thing that isn't based on your daily willpower. It's based on the systems that you've built in the business.
Yeah. And we talked too about, going to the gym and everything. If you look at somebody that's super fit, and perhaps got a fine physique and everything, you look at them and you say to them, well, how do you do that? And they said to you, well, I go to the gym. And every time, when I go to the gym, I do X, Y, Z. You need to appreciate it. It wasn't because they went to the gym once and did it. It's because they did it over a period of time and they did it consistently. And this is exactly the same for business development. You can't send out 1,000 emails once a month and go, well, this isn't working.
Yeah.
That's not consistent, being consistent. What we know with the top achievers, they're doing some part of business development, in some cases, 7 days a week. They will be posting on social media platforms 7 days a week. They're reaching out through automation 5 days a week. They're sending out emails. They've brought in setters to make appointments for them, but they're doing something 7 days a week, because that's where the success comes from. It comes from that consistent activity, rather than, you don't brush your teeth once and say, right, I've got clean teeth now. To have healthy teeth, you have to brush them every day. Business development is exactly the same.
No, 100%. So that's rule number one. Rule number two is visibility beats outreach in modern business development. So visibility beats outreach in modern business development. And what we mean by that is that the way a lot of recruitment and search business owners approach business development is by doing outreach. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with outreach, but the way that most outreach is structured is that we're hoping to hit someone on the right day, on the right time, with the right message, right? And again, I'm not saying don't do it, but it makes it really difficult to, I guess, get that predictability, because, we're limited the number of LinkedIn messages we can send. We're limited the number of emails we can send. Every outreach is limited to an extent, right? So we're limited there. What's a far better approach as well as that? So I'm, again, not saying to replace outreach completely. I'm saying this is probably works more, is having the mindset that I want to be, me as a recruitment business owner, I want to be the business that my ideal clients think of when they have a need, right? So we have to appreciate and accept that for the vast majority of industries, most of your market will not be recruiting right now. They're not recruiting right now. But we also have to say that they probably will in the future, right? So we've got lots of future buyers, but not very many now buyers, right? We can't necessarily create demand. We can't create a need. But that we do know that need's going to come eventually. So all we want to do is put ourselves in a position that when that need comes, we are the first business that our ideal clients think of. I think one of the areas right now, if you're not happy with the number of clients you got or the quality of clients you got, people often blame competitors, the market. I think for a lot of recruiters, you're not even getting in a position to pitch your services. Your ideal clients don't know you exist. Your ideal prospects don't know you exist because you do not have that visibility. You're obscure. right? You're nobody to them. You're no one to them, right? So one of our first goals is we want to build systems, design content that gets us seen, gets us visible, knowing that most people that see it won't have a need right now, but being consistent enough and at high volume enough that when they do have a need, we are the first person that comes to the top of their mind. Terry, does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. It reminds me of somebody, you know, who I'm referring to, based up in the north of England. He works within SaaS, and he recruits senior executives within SaaS. And he generates, as a solo recruiter, just under $1 million a year. When I said what his key secret was, he said in his opinion, his success was down to the fact that he was seen as the go-to search firm within executive search within SaaS. Think about that. He was seen as the go-to. And he said often what would happen is he would get emails and phone calls from hiring managers who he's never personally met before, who would say something like, I'm looking to recruit an executive at this level, would like to get your opinion, or we're talking to a number of recruiters, we'd like you to put in a pitch for this. And he said, even putting in a proposal to recruit some of this, he acknowledges that most of the time he doesn't get them. He said his success rate was about 20%, 20 to 30%. He said, but what was important, Terry, that he gets 4 of those requests a month, every month. So he kind of knows he's going to get 4 requests. He's going to get at least 1 retained search every month just from people that he's never met before. Because he acknowledges that when he was struggling before, most of his potential clients never heard of them. Let me repeat that. Most of his potential clients had never heard of him. And he says it to it that really struck a chord. And he said, I realized, Terry, that and he's been in the industry for some time, 18 years or so, that it's very rare that a hiring manager gives you a call, sends you an email and says, I don't know who you are, I don't know what you do, but I'd like to talk to you about whether you could do some recruitment. He said, it doesn't happen. He said, the only time he gets calls is from people that know who he is. So it's imperative that you've got that outreach going out all the time. I can give you a cast iron guarantee. The reason you haven't got the business that you want right now is because the majority of your potential clients have never heard of you. And if you've been in recruitment for any period of time, you know it's highly unlikely they're going to be calling you anytime soon if they've never heard of you. But you also know that some of your competitors are out there every single day in front of their potential clients. And Drew made a really good point. There are 2 types of hiring managers. The hiring managers that's hiring right now. But the problem is because they're hiring right now, they're talking to 3 or 4 of your competitors. They're probably giving the job order to 3 or 4 of your competitors. But the what we call the now hiring managers is a very small percentage. It's about 10%. What it does mean, there's a bigger market. About 90% of the market in your market right now are not hiring right now, but they will be hiring in the future. They're the ones you should be targeting now, so that when they're ready to pull the trigger, you're at the forefront of their mind. But you can't do that by being the best kept secret. You've got to raise your head above the power of it. You've got to let these guys know that you're out there. I'll repeat, you haven't got the business that you want because the potential clients who could buy from you have never heard of you. And as long as that's the case, you're never going to get business from them.
Yeah. And again, just as you listen to this, if you want to get more visibility with your ideal clients, if you go to makemoreplacements.com/call, there's a short video there about what we do, how we can help. Watch that. Yeah. And if it makes sense, then book a call with us. But Terry, just to move on to number 3, right? Number 3 is not all conversations are good conversations. So the thought of another third rule we want to take into 2026 is not all conversations are good conversations. Terry, again, what do we mean by this?
There's 2 here. One of the things that, and especially search firms and recruiters who are kind of reluctant to do business development, they spend a lot of time talking to potential candidates.
Yeah.
Here's the thinking. Yeah, but Terry, these potential candidates, one day they could become hiring managers. I'm not disputing that in the slightest, by the way. One day they could possibly become hiring managers. However, as they're not hiring managers right now, and you'll wait for them to get promoted to that level, you would be better off spending a lot more time with with actual hiring managers who will be hiring in the next year or so, rather than the future hiring managers to be hiring in the next 2 or 3 years. And I sometimes think it's a defense mechanism. If I'm talking to lots of candidates, I feel really busy, and I think I'm doing some good here. And look, you will get some business from candidates, but you're more likely to get business from hiring managers. So that's the first example. And then you've got the other example. Not all clients are created equal. So some clients are going to say ridiculous things to you. Yeah, we want to work with you. We're going to pay you 8%. We're going to pay the invoice 120 days after the candidate started, and I'm going to extremes, but you kind of get the point. You don't have to bend over backwards to work with those kind of that type of clients. As the owner of the business, you should decide who you work with, when you work with them, and what the fee should be. That should be your decision. And you should only work with clients that are prepared to, who value and respect you and are prepared to do that. But not all clients do. And some clients, treat recruiters like dirt, quite frankly, and make those ridiculous, suggestions such as 10% fees and paying you 120 days after the candidate starts. And if the candidate leaves after 10 years, we want a full refund. And look, I'm going to extremes, but you get the point. So not all conversations are the right conversations to be had. Does that make sense, Drew?
It does make sense, and I agree 100% what you said. The other thing I'd add to that is, like you're talking about more about the people they speak to, how they're speaking to the right people. I would add to that and say, even if you are speaking to the right people, it needs to be the right conversation. I think one of the patterns I'm seeing a lot with recruiters and recruitment search business owners is that they sort of forget the consultant part of their job title. Right? They just become more order takers. I think that you will win a lot more business with a lot better clients if, rather than we're just taking orders, we consult, right? And what I mean by that is, sometimes, like one example would be, sometimes you'll speak to a hiring manager, and it might be the right person, might be the right client, right? And they say, look, you know what? We're not gonna be hiring until let's say it's January now, right? We're not gonna be hiring until June, right? 6 months out. So let's speak again in June. Right. And then what we do as recruitment and search personas, we accept that, okay, we'll call you back in June. You call back in June, and then what's happened is other firms have got there first, and you've missed out on an opportunity, right? And really, what one example of that, what the hiring manager might mean is that they want the candidate to start in June, not that they want to speak in June, right? So then you need to sort of future pace. Okay, if the candidate needs to start in June, when do you actually need to be speaking to the hiring manager, right? And you need to lead that conversation rather than accepting from them when that call needs to be. The other thing is when you, and this happens a lot, right? You'll speak to hiring manager, he will tell you they're not recruiting, right? Let's say, Terry, you brought up someone who works in SaaS, right? So let's say you work in SaaS, and again, it's different from sector to sector, but this happens in every sector. You'll speak to a hiring manager, they say they're not recruiting, we don't have a need right now, as in we don't have a need for that candidate. That might be true. What they do have a need for is the outcome that candidate provides, right? So if I'm in SaaS, and let's say I recruit salespeople, I could speak to a hiring manager who says, look, I'm not recruiting any anyone right now, or any salespeople right now. But what they all want, and most of the time, is an increase in sales, right? They all want that, right? So again, consulting means that, okay, Mrs. Hiring Manager, I understand you're not thinking about recruiting right now. That's fine, but you said that you do have a problem with sales, or you do want to increase sales, or you do want to increase performance in this area. Okay, how about we have a conversation about how that can be done, right? And in that conversation, we sell the idea of recruitment, or we sell the idea of the candidate when they're not thinking of it, right? We want to be the people or the person that triggers that conversation where maybe they can't make a buying decision right then, but maybe it triggers the thought in their head that, you know what, I need to go and speak to the board, or I need to go and look at investment, because actually we do need a person. I was thinking I need to hire next year, but actually it needs to be this year, right? So we need to look at more consulting, not just recruitment. Terry, I don't know if that makes sense, or I'll put it across in the right way.
Perfect sense. So you've made some great points here. And I think the example you gave of, here we are in January and the hiring managers were not recruited until June. You then call back in June and it's now too late. I think that's a great example. And the other thing I'd add to that, you call somebody in January and they say we're not recruited till June. You say you're going to call back in June. You call them back in June. They don't remember you if you haven't kept in touch with them.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. And by the way, they never admit that. They go, I remember the conversation. We're okay for the moment. The fact is they don't remember, because, you have a 10-minute conversation with somebody in January. Is it likely you're going to remember that conversation unless it's really memorable? So it's a really good point there. And I think the other point you raised there, Drew, about, and this is always sometimes difficult, hiring managers don't want recruiters or the recruitment service. What they do want is the results that your service provides. So you as a recruiter, if I was a rec-to-rec guy and me saying to you as a recruiter, have you got any vacancies for any consultants? Most of you would say, no, we haven't. But if I was to say to you, if I could introduce you to a consultant that could add 200,000 to your revenue over the next 12 months, is that something that would be of interest to you? Now they have got some interest in that. But you see the difference? I'm not talking about recruiting now. I'm talking about adding 200,000 to your revenue over the next 12 months. So the example that Drew gave, if you're a VP of sales, if you could find somebody that could add an additional 500,000 or 1 million to your revenue over 12 months, I suspect you could make room for him. Would that be about right? Well, yeah, of course it would be. But they weren't recruiting 5 minutes before that. But I hope you see the difference there. It's the results that your service brings rather than the service itself. Nobody wants a recruiter, but they do want the results that your service brings to their business.
Yep, 100%. 100%. That brings us on to number 4, which is authority has to come before selling. So authority has to come before selling. Terry, again, question for you, or just on this. Why does selling recruitment or getting a client or hiring manager to buy into your services, why is it, again, especially in 2026, why is it going to be so much harder or more of an uphill battle when that authority hasn't been established first?
Yeah. So if you say to 100% of recruiters, what's your USP? And then listen very carefully to 100 recruiters, there isn't one, quite frankly. If I was to say to most recruiters, why would I work with you rather than your competitors? And they say, well, we care. We've got a large database. And so look at it from the hiring manager point of view. So now they're thinking, well, all these guys are saying much the same thing. And so the only difference now is, what's your fee? Oh, yours is 25%. Yours is 23. I'll go with that guy who's at 23 because it's a little bit cheaper. So all that happens is it becomes a commodity. Because the only difference is the price. It's a bit like buying petrol. The petrol in the different petrol stations is very much the same. And if you've got a petrol car, you're going to shop around and, try and save a couple of p on the litre or whatever. There is no difference. However, if you're seen as the authority, the expert in your field, the fee, the investment becomes less of a conversation.
Yeah.
What they want now, what they're buying into is expertise. In fact, studies suggest that fee becomes the number 4 on the list of important things. Authority, relationship, and understanding of the market are more important than fees. So the moment you can position yourself as an authority, and that's why, by the way, there's a saying in recruitment that the narrower your niche, the broader your appeal. So if you've got a defined niche, let's go back to SaaS again, and you position yourself as the authority in that market, you'll have less resistance to your fees. Of course, you're going to get some hiring managers that say, well, I can get that cheaper down the road. Of course you can, Mr. or Mrs. Hiring Manager, get it cheaper, but you can't get it from an expert. So it's up to you. Do you want the authority in this market to do the work for you, or do you want the cheapest recruiter? You let me know. Interestingly, the majority of hiring managers want the best, not the cheapest candidate.
Yeah.
But that's all to do with authority. Anything to add to that, Drew?
No, not really. I mean, I agree 100% what you said. I think more and more authority is important. And I think this links back to like the visibility thing we were saying earlier. Like you build visibility with that authority. Like it happens simultaneously because the way you get visibility is by having that omnipresence on multiple platforms, and putting the right content in front of the right people. And it's that content that builds authority simultaneously. So I think if you're doing that anyway, you sort of tackling the visibility thing, and the content's good, you're going to get that authority, right? You want, I said earlier that you want to be the first person that the hiring manager thinks of when they're ready to buy, but you want that thought to be like, these guys are the best at this. These guys, I've seen these videos, I've seen this LinkedIn post, this whatever, where these guys have, to me, the hiring manager demonstrated to me, they know exactly what I need. They know exactly what they're talking about. I'm going to go to them first. And I think once you've got that, like Terry said, the fee becomes easier. We can start landing more exclusive and retained deals. Because if you're the authority, why do I need to speak to 5, 6, 10 other recruiters? Why do I need that? Why do I need to dilute the message like that? And if you're the authority, what's my issue with paying you up front? I believe you're going to deliver. So once we have that, it becomes so much easier to sort of get that growth that we're talking about.
That's a really good point. In fact, Drew, you were on the call yesterday with some of our clients. Some of our clients do podcasts where so one example, one of our clients, he works in manufacturing in North America. So he does a podcast where he's interviewing CEOs within manufacturing. Yeah. So he does a podcast, he does a live podcast, and he invites other CEOs. So he'll get 120, 200 CEOs within manufacturing coming along to listen to him interview another CEO about their journey to becoming a CEO within manufacturing. Can you see how that enhances his credibility and authority?
Yeah.
And the other advantage there, rather than selling one-to-one selling, he's now positioning himself as an authority to 200 potential clients. So when the client says to him, why would I work with you rather than your competitors? He positions himself. I'm the expert. I interview CEOs within manufacturing every week in my weekly podcast. Yeah, it's I think it's something that's really underestimated. And here's something worth considering, by the way. If you get reluctance from a hiring manager, here's a question that they're asking, but they don't verbalize. What if I get this decision wrong?
Yeah.
We all do that. If you're going to buy something of any value, you want to make sure you're making the right decision. Now, I can work with this guy who cold called me and says he can do what he says he can do. Or there's this other guy that I see all over LinkedIn, and I get his regular newsletter, and I listen to his podcast, and I get his emails where he's not selling me anything, but he's giving me more content, high value content on a regular basis. It takes away that doubt then. I trust this person, this recruiter, who I've never met before, but I see a lot of their content, as opposed to this other guy. He just cold called me, and quite frankly, I just don't know. And as a buyer, that's always going through our mind. What if I get this wrong? And you want to take away that doubt by providing authority, or position yourself as an authority in your market. Anything to add to that, Drew?
No, 100% agree. Yeah, I think some obviously really good points. So again, just to recap on that, authority has to come before selling. Number 5 is business development should make you pickier, not busier. All right, business development should make you pickier, not busier. Just on this, I think one of the, I guess, thoughts that a lot of recruiters have is they want, and they only think in this that they want more clients, right? I want more clients so I can hit my goals. And yes, you might be at a stage in your business where you want more volume, but simultaneously to that, we need to improve the quality of client that you have, right? And that could mean the fee is higher. It could mean the quality means that they just respect you more. It could mean that you get more exclusive clients rather than, needing 10 job orders to fill 5. You just working 5 exclusive job orders. So you actually less clients, but you're making the same money. Could be retained, they're paying you up front. Could be a whole number of sort of elements that make them higher quality. But if we're getting business development right, and we're doing business development for the right reasons, going back to visibility, going back to authority, going back to all the things that we spoke about. It's not just about let's get more volume, let's get more clients, let's get more sales calls. It's so that actually, rather than having 1-2 sales calls a week, all right, I can have 10. And rather than when those 2 sales calls, they say, look, we don't want to pay your fee. I feel like, what, if I don't accept this, I don't know where my next piece of business is coming from. Or, I don't think I can get higher than this. We've got 10 others, though, I can say, look, Mr. Mrs. Hiring Manager, okay, you're not willing to pay the fee, or you're not willing to go retained, but this client is, right? So if I'm going retained with them, it wouldn't be fair if I'm going to be contingent with you. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not going to give as much time to your job order when these people are paying me up front to dedicate and commit to it when you're looking for the same type of candidate. It doesn't make any sense, right? So we can now start to be pickier, more choosy, and across the board up the quality of clients that we're working with, which one, I think, makes your role as a business owner more enjoyable, right? If you enjoy the people you work with, you're going to enjoy the role more. It makes your business more profitable, which is again very, very important, which again obviously links to the enjoyable. But if we're not having to work with 10 clients to fill 5 job orders, we can work with 5 to fill 5. You've halved the work and with the same amount of results. That's assuming the fee's the same. If the fee's higher, we're getting more profit for that as well, right? So again, across the board, I think for mental health, personal health, enjoyment, I want you to put a lot of time and energy and focus and thought into the quality of client, not just the volume of client. Terry, anything you'd add to that?
I think this particular subject is so underestimated, and I'm full disclosure is when I owned my own recruitment business, I worked with some clients who were an absolute joy to work with, and when they called me and I saw their number on my mobile, I'd smile and I'd look forward to talking to them. But I also worked with some clients who were nothing but a pain in the arse. There's no other word for it. They would quite frankly piss and moan about everything. The weather would be lousy and I would be held responsible for it. And at the time, I was working with the coach at the time, and I just say, it really gets me down. And I'm not enjoying what I'm doing when I deal with these clients who do nothing but moan and complain about my fees and everything else. I remember him saying, but that's your choice. you're choosing to work with them. So you can complain about it as much as you want, Terry, but you need to look at it and acknowledge that you've made that decision. You don't have to work with them. Yeah. I would counter that by saying, but I need the business. I've got to work with it. But his argument was, you don't. You decide who you work with. Once you can get your head around that, it was, I can't remember. It was such a relief rather, to know that actually I chose who I worked with.
It's liberating.
It liberated, that's the word. Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't have to work with those lousy clients who were a pain in the arse, who would take, 3 months to pay an invoice, who would always try and screw you down the fees, one client, we agreed the fee before we started on the work. They then made an offer, and then they said, we can't pay you that fee now. We need to reduce the fee. Which I thought was so underhand.
Yeah.
I can complain about that all day. That was my choice to work with them. You decide. We talked about this before. You should be deciding who you work with, when you work with them, and what the fee is. And as Drew said, it is so liberating when you make that decision. And if you're not making that decision, it drains your confidence and drains your energy if you're working with lousy clients. And if you've been there, you'll know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
But when you're working with clients who are joy, who say, hey, listen, how about meeting up for a beer or going for a meal? You go, love to, because you enjoy their company. It's completely different. I'm not saying that, it has to be that type of the relationship, but you certainly have to enjoy working with them. And if you're not enjoying working with them, you really shouldn't be working with them. Anything to add to that, Drew?
Yeah. No, that's it. Yeah, agree 100%. Again, if you want help getting better quality clients, you go to makemoreplacements.com/call. There's a short video there that explains a bit more about what we do, how we help recruitment and search presenters get more clients, get higher fees, win more retained and exclusive deals. Have a watch that video. And then if it sounds interesting, you can take the next steps. That's it for today, Terry. Again, thank you for your input.
Thank you, Drew. It's been good. So, listen, if you've enjoyed this, tell your friends and colleagues in the industry. If you haven't enjoyed it, let me know. So let's see what we can do. Seriously, until next time, folks, take care, take action, be relentless. Cheers, folks.